Welcome to the Vital Path podcast, where nervous system science meets spiritual growth through honest conversations with men who've done the work. Most long-term relationships don't fall apart overnight. They end slowly because we stop choosing our partner every day. If you've ever felt that spark of relationship fading or wondered why the success you have in business doesn't translate to the relationship you want, this episode is for you. Joining me is Bryan Reeves. He's a former U.S. Air Force captain turned renowned relationship coach. He's the author of Choose Her Every Day or Leave Her, based on his essay that went viral in 2025 and reached over 1 million readers per day. The article became the ethos of his book that has reached over 100 million people since 2018. Together, we dive into the heart of relationships and break down why choosing her every day or having the courage to leave her is the ultimate act of personal responsibility we can take. In this episode, Bryan offers practical tools from his own relationship and work with men and women over the last 20 years that will change the way you see connection and intimacy. I'm Andrew Newton, and this is The Vital Path. Let's dive right in. Welcome to the Vital Path podcast. Today, we have Bryan Reeves on the show. Thank you for being here, brother.
Yeah, what's up, Andrew? I'm glad to be here, man. Good to see you outside of the MMA boxing ring.
Right. Last time I saw you, I was dodging right hands from the captain.
But all good, man. You definitely were one of the men in there that helped me, be okay with taking a bit more of a punch than I would want to take. So, and that's important. There's a place for that. There's value in that.
For sure. That really showed me a lot. You know, I was training with older guys, stronger guys, people who had trained martial arts in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And for me coming up against guys like you, guys like Samson, guys like who have our physical specimens, it really showed me what I was capable of.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important thread we'll get into in terms of the men's work is leaning into those edges.
Yeah, I think I like that. You know, one of the things that I often presence in men's work also is having courage to back away from our edges, to not always just walk on the fucking razor's edge, to not always, because especially we're going to talk about intimate relationships today. And that tends to fuck us up when we're trying to maximize intensity and go to the edge of our capacity and this and that. That actually is often counterproductive. It actually hurts us and our partners in relationships when we live there. So tying it in, but there's a big, beautiful lessons in all this.
It truly is. It's knowing when to use the sword and when to come with the flower or the compassion, discipline side of the coin. I really love that. We can pick up on that thread as we go, but I've got to start by asking you about choose her every day or leave her.
Yeah.
And to me, when I first read this title, it struck a chord. And it did in the collective back when this went completely viral in 2015.
Yeah.
So I would love to know, it's become the ethos of your book and a central thesis of what you bring to the world.
Yeah.
My curiosity in this is, why did that trigger some folks? And what are people misunderstanding about that?
Yeah, man. You know, even as the years go by and I sit with what that, people ask me to this day, what does it really mean to choose your partner every day? And what I think, I wrote that essay, I wrote that in 2015. We're now 2026. I'm 51. I was 40 at the time and single, by the way. And, I'm married now 10 years with my wife. And choose her every day or leave her. What I think really struck a chord and why it was so profound, even for me personally, the awakening that I was going through was, in many ways, it was really a boyhood, kind of an adolescent to mature manhood transition, right? Before choose her every day or leave her, there's more of the ethos of, man, if this is easy, I'll keep showing up for it. If love is easy, I'll do it. When it gets hard, this sucks. She sucks, or I suck, but something sucks and I don't like it, and I'm not here for it. And choose her every day or leave her was a turning point, I think, for me personally, and I think a lot of men and women also have been living in that more on the adolescent side of relationship, which is, I'm not going to take personal responsibility for how this goes. If it doesn't go well, it's your fault, or it's life's fault, or it's, or I'm a victim to something that is out of my control. And not that there's no truth to that. I mean, we're all products of our childhood. We're products of the imprints we get from our parents, from society, from the messages. So there's a lot that is out of our control. But I think there comes a time in our lives when we have to own our choices. And that, choose her every day or leave her is a proclamation. It is confronting, I think. And it is a declaration. It's like, you're choosing this, buddy. I'm talking to myself right now. You're choosing this. And if you don't like what's happening, then it's on you to change it somehow. Don't expect, her to be easier, her to be, not that you can't have boundaries. You must have boundaries, not that there's a lot of layers and nuance to this, but at the end of the day, choose her every day or leave her it is a confronting maturity check. Right? Are you man enough to own your choices, or are you going to remain in a victim? This is bigger than me. I can't help it. I'm helpless in the face of whatever adversity is going on here, and it's not my fault.
I respect that wholeheartedly. There's a piece in there I'm curious about. You've brought this forth to the world, and some men have taken this as Bible. This is what this is. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious if you ever wrestle with, this is what I coach men with, that has led some men to leave relationships, to double down on ones that don't work. How do you as a leader help support people in making the right choice?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, that's why it's not just choose her every day, period. Yeah. It's choose her every day. And if you aren't going to do that, that's okay. No shame, but leave. Right? And again, I know it's a stark do this or do that. And though there's a comma and a pause. There is a period, there's time for reflection. I think that's, I love men's groups, right? You work with men, I work with men. I think men working with each other, having these dialogues and conversations with each other is so important, because we get to check in with each other like, and not just any guy. Like, most guys have, drinking buddies, sports buddies, that'll just tell you, they'll just take your side and say, yeah, bitches, man, they're crazy. Fucking, you should just cut her free, man. You'd be better off without her. That's not the kind of support that we need to make the most important decisions of our lives, like who we're going to partner or romantically, intimately parent with, all of that, right? But trustable men that don't just have my back, that aren't just supporting me, but also are rooting for my wife and for my relationship also. Being in conversation with men that can check us on what we're thinking, what we're afraid of, what we think isn't normal, that actually almost always is. I think I'm the only one going through this. I'm the only one struggling with how my wife talks to me. Every other guy's got his shit. No, you're not. So many men struggle with the way that their wives talk to them. And there's skills that we can actually learn in order to have boundaries, to not demand, but command a new kind of interaction that is a stand for mutual respect, and so on and so on, right? So it's like, choose her every day, comma, pause. And if you sit inside of that, like, can I choose her? Like, am I able to do, and again, having boundaries, can I learn skills? Can I do X, Y, Z, whatever? And at the end of the day, if you go that distance and you realize, what? I'm not in for this. Good, beautiful clarity. Fucking leave. Do yourself and her and whoever would love her a big favor and just leave. Right? But it's a journey. There's a lot that happens in that gets to happen in that pause. And sometimes people know immediately, I actually don't want this. But I think, and sometimes people know immediately, what's his name? Hal Elrod, who wrote the Miracle Morning, right? When he shares choose her every day or leave her, he shares that it saved his marriage. Because when he read it, it was that moment of, holy shit, I have not been choosing this woman that I love and that I want to be choosing. And that led him on a whole other path of how to show up in a new way, right? He had that lightning bolt of clarity. And, it doesn't happen like that for everybody. Yeah.
Right. I think the timing piece is really important to talk about here. Because as you said, some people know right away. And some people need time to be in that question with themselves and their partner. And what I'm noticing in the modern dating space is this short-term gratification, and people, in my perspective, are taking too little time to really suss that question out. So I guess I'm curious, how do you help a man or a woman in relationship really come to their own knowing in that?
Well, I think the first question that I'm always checking in with is timing. Do you really want a committed relationship? Like, timing matters. I heard, I think it was Jeff Brown, the author Jeff Brown, said the right person at the wrong time is the wrong person. I was like, wow, that's pretty good. He has a good way with words. I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. How many times did I try to make the right person when the timing was wrong be the right person, and it doesn't work? And but I think that's really important. Timing matters. Are you in a mental space? Are you in an open place? Are you do you desire that? My wife and I, we actually met. Well, no, we didn't meet. We were in the same room 3 years before we met. But we didn't meet. I don't even remember her in that room. We know we were there because it was the same event, same people performing at this little house event in Brentwood here in LA. We were both there that night. Our paths didn't cross. We didn't connect. And I look back and I know that I was not ready for a relationship. I just wasn't ready. I didn't have a good foundation beneath my feet. Had she and I tried to date, I would have flaked out on her so hard. And so that's the first thing, timing. Do you really want this? I think that's something people got to really be honest with themselves about first. Because if you do really want this, then the next thing that you need to know is you can't expect a relationship to be great in the first month or 6 months or 2 years. It took my wife and I 7 years to get really good at being with each other. And that's two people who study this shit and who, are actively working at it and trying to figure it out and coach other people. And my wife's a therapist, and, it takes years to really make a relationship work in a beautiful way. And so that's the second thing that people need to know. If you're ready for it, great. Now, are you ready for the journey that you're going to have to go on?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And there's different types of men that we can speak to in this moment. I guess from my perspective, I continue to hear, okay, I've got to get the foundation set. I've got to have the job, the financial provision, all of these things first. And I believe that to be valuable. And on the flip side of that, that bar keeps raising for people.
Mm-hmm.
And men and women aren't necessarily coming together in a way that is supportive in the present moment, because each gender is kind of moving the needle farther down that timeline.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess what would you say to that, man?
I would say that's true if you believe it to be true.
Mm.
It's going to be true for you. If you think that you need the foundation, you need the security, you need the job title, you need the income, you need the this, you need the that, then that is going to be true for you. I met Sylvie when I was 41 and broke at the end of every month. I hadn't quite locked in. I was coaching. I'd started coaching, but I wasn't making a lot of money from it. I was locked into what I wanted to do. I felt alive in my purpose, but I wasn't really succeeding at it financially. I couldn't support a woman at that time. In fact, in years prior, when I had more money, I believed the story that if I don't have enough money, no woman will love me. And so that, by the way, when Sylvie and I were in that room together 3 years prior, I was caught in that story. If I don't have enough money, no woman will love me. And I think that plays into why there's no way I was going to ask a woman like Sylvie out in a room, because I can't afford her, is the story I'm believing. Even if she says yes to me, I'm going to be mortified about her coming into my world and seeing the absence of resources. But, flash forward 3 years, I had tackled that mindset. I was in a whole different state of mind, but I had less money, Andrew. But I had a different mindset. I had a different resolve. I had a different clarity. And when I walked into that first date with her, I was so alive in my body, right? You talk, this podcast is the vital path. I was alive in my body. I was loving life. I was in love with my life. I wasn't attached to whether this woman liked me or didn't like me, whether my resources were enough for her. I didn't give a shit, because that wasn't the thing that I was leading with anymore. And man, I mean, here we are 10 years later, we're married. And by the way, Sylvie's beautiful woman, Los Angeles, she had gone on so many dates with other guys, much wealthier guys than I may ever be in my lifetime. And they would often lead with their money. And it didn't move her, because it's not about that. It's about who they were being. And when I walked into that room, the man that I was being was something that money can't possibly create for a man. So that's a long ass answer to just say, like, if you believe that to be true, then it will be true for you.
Yeah. And it's inspiring. I appreciate you sharing that personal story. And, what I'm recognizing, and you've taught about, is there's two different skills. There's attracting a woman, and then there's keeping her. And that requires two different mindsets and men all in one. Can you walk us through the difference in those pieces?
Oh, I say, like to the pickup artist community, like a pickup artist, they may know how to get the woman, but they have no idea what to do with her once they got her. Really the pickup artists, they know how to get the girl, but they don't know what to do with a woman. And I think look, not to disrespect that community and that work. I think there's a place for men learning confidence, how to talk to a woman. I was terrified of women for, most of my younger age. I could have used, another man kind of helping instill confidence about how to go and talk to a girl and do those things. Right. So there's a place for that, but creating a sustainable, healthy relationship with a woman is a whole other ballgame. And I mean, there's a lot I could say, but I'm curious what direction do you want me to go with that?
Yeah, I'm grateful we're drawing the line in the distinction. At least there's two very different camps there. Yeah. I'm really curious about what you've seen in men who perhaps have that initial skill set, but then come into the relationship and struggle with intimacy, with connection, with the true depth they desire in their heart. How do you support men through that?
What comes up for me when you put it like that is the archetype of the hero, right? And the archetype of the hero has to save the day. The hero wins the damsel, conquers the dragon, defeats whatever obstacle in the path. And that's very much like the pickup artist, the getting a girl to like you, to give you her phone number, to say yes to a date. Especially in our more youthful approaches, there's a very heroic aspect of that. Like, look what I did. We pound our chest. Yo, look at these digits. There's a pride. I got this. I got that. Notch on the bedpost, whatever. There's a very heroic approach. And again, that has its place. We all have to learn how to overcome obstacles, to exercise that part of us. But the hero, when applied to an intimate relationship, to a long-term sustainable interrelationship, it's not really the domain of the hero. In fact, the hero gets bored. The hero he gets frustrated because it turns out he can't save his intimate partner. She doesn't want to be saved. I mean, as much as women, the fantasy, but this is the girl version. This is the girl adolescent version. The to be saved, be rescued by the knight on the white horse. That's the female adolescent fantasy that pairs very well with the masculine, the male heroic fantasy of being the knight on the white horse. Right? Those pair very well, and they get us to the moment of, like every fairy tale, they get to the moment of the sunset wedding, but that's the end of the movie in the fairy tale. We don't get to talk about, well, what happens next? Well, where do they go from there? Now they have to build an actual relationship. Our fairy tales don't generally cover that part and yet that's when the real work begins. So one of the things that we men have to learn is to bring these other aspects of ourselves online, to not get rid of the hero. We never want to get rid of the hero in us, but to learn how to not lead with the hero, to not be the savior. And a lot of men don't know how to do that. I mean, look, myself included, it was very, very difficult. If she doesn't need me to fix her, save her, do some heroic act for her, or she resists all my attempts at that, then what the fuck am I here for? And what the fuck are you here for?
What are we doing here?
What are we doing here? If someone's not being saved, and by the way, if I'm not the savior, or you're not saving me in some way, or I'm not saving you, again, it's just unsustainable for a healthy adult relationship. So that's one of the first things that, obviously not in every case, but a lot of us have to start to learn to get over, is how to relax the heroic part of us and be willing to be with the messiness of relationship, to have things not be so savable, not be so fixable, right? Because that's how a lot of guys, it may show up, saving looks like fixing. If I can just fix the problems that she's coming at me with, we're good. And so much, so we men we turn women into problems to be solved. I can speak from very personal experience that never goes well. I'm sure,
Yeah.
Andrew, you might have something to say about that as well.
I certainly do. And in my experience, when I've met mature and evolved women, and I come from that hero energy, it doesn't match.
Right.
And then it's left me, a part of me, how can I add value to this person when she doesn't need anything from me in this way that I'm accustomed to?
Right.
So that's a really beautiful nuance to it, because somebody who's evolved and is really ready for relationship may not or doesn't need that.
Right.
And on the other side, we're talking about the mess of relationship and being seen in the yuckiness, the breakdowns, the breakthroughs, and something I've practiced quite a lot and offered to anyone that I work with is seeing those opportunities as opportunities for growth. Mm-hmm. And recognizing the gift in that when there is a breakdown, there's a breakthrough on the other side, or a rupture actually can allow for more connection. And this is where I wanted to transition into, because, before the call, we're talking about nervous systems and how to actually feel connection. Mm-hmm. That's a piece I'd love to dive into, because, you've even transitioned the name of your podcast to Bridging Connections. And I'm seeing this crisis as well of connection that both men and women are after, but specifically for men, how do you help them feel that in their body?
Often helpful entryways for a man to start to connect with that is to notice what does his body do when he's in conflict, when disagreement arises. So, for example, I noticed for me, when a disagreement would start to arise between me and my partner, I would begin to cross my arms. And especially the more heated it started to get, my face would get tight. I'd cross my arms and I would turn to the side. Like I'm defending myself, I'm protecting myself. I'm just sort of looking at the body, noticing like, holy shit, wow, look at all that. Look at all that nonverbal communication going on. Right. And I was unconscious to that for most of my life. I was just oblivious. I'm just in the argument. I'm waging my silly war in my head. I think I'm fighting her, but I'm really just fighting myself. So, but that's a first one. When I first started to notice that, well, now there's a pathway to practice. Right. And for me, what that looked like is, well, okay, once I noticed that, it also, by the way, gives me something else to focus on, because before I'm just focused on how pissed off I am, or how, horrible I think she's being, or how wrong I think she is. That's the sole focus. And how do I win? Right. That was the focus. Now I have another focus. It's like, okay, well, that may still be going on, but look what's going on in my body. Right. And what am I communicating to her, by the way, in this stance? I'm communicating, I'm not open. I'm closed. I'm defended. I feel attacked. And by the way, I'm in my tone of voice is I'm also attacking. Right. So for a lot of guys, that's a first, I wouldn't say easy, but easy to identify, right? Pathway for practice. So for me, what that would look like is when I would notice that, I would just take a deep breath, uncross my arms, drop them to my side, soften my face. That's a big one, because I get resting stone face, which, I mean, I've never dated a woman who liked that part of me, or who felt safe with my stony face, especially in conflict. And so, I had to learn to, and I would even literally sometimes, I'd just sort of stretch my face a little bit to kind of soften it, and make sure I'm breathing. I'd turn and face her. Right. And now I'm starting to, so I'm at least bringing awareness to what's going on in my body. I'm adopting a new practice. I'm working with a new practice to soften my body. I'm turning towards her. So I'm communicating something, right? That's just a first initial practice that a man can do, right? To just notice, what does your body do in conflict, and how can you unwind that? You don't even have to notice, you don't have to narrate it or talk about it, and it often, maybe even always, involves taking a deep breath. The best, quickest way to soften the body, to shift out of the fight or flight into a more relaxed, present state, is just take a really nice deep breath. So that's one thing. Another practice that I'll work with men is having them track her breath with their breath. Right. And it could just be sitting at the kitchen table. They may be in conversation. They might not be. But it's just, can you track her breath with your breath? Notice. Again, it's just an attuning practice. Because most of us, again, myself included, most of the time, just clueless to what's actually happening in the moment in the body. Unless, I mean, I think when people grow up with a lot of physical violence in the home and a lot of danger, I think we can be hyper attuned to what's going on in the moment. And, oh my God, they're feeling some stress over there. I can feel it in their body. But then they're not really attuned to what's happening. What's happening is they're getting their old wound and fear is getting activated. And so they are attuned to what's happening, but the story their body is telling about it is, I'm in danger. Go, activate coping mechanisms, activate defense mechanisms, which is either I'm going to go save, rescue them, get them out of their own, elevated heart rate state, get them out of it as quickly as possible, which that's not helpful, or I'm fucking out of here in whatever way that might look like. So again, if you just, that's another just simple practice, just tracking her breath. Don't have to tell her you're doing it. So these are just a few little entryways into learning to connect to the body, to attune, right? Just beginner steps.
So useful. And I appreciate it, because it's often these subtle entry points that open up to connection, and coming from this guarded posture of, okay, I'm defensive, to, wow, let me actually physically open to this person, and tell my nervous system that this isn't a threat. this is someone who loves me, even though it can feel like that from
Totally.
the neck down.
Yeah,
It's
I'll share one other thing if I may.
please.
I think this is also a very simple and so overlooked practice and one that gets us men in a lot of trouble for reasons that we never understand. I'll tell it like this. So years ago, I think I was 30 maybe, and I was working at an office with a woman that I had started dating. And I was one of the executives and she was a new hire. And anyway, she paged me on the intercom at the office once. And we're at work, so I pick up the phone. Yeah. That was my, yeah, like that. That's how I answered. Yeah. Well, for the next 6 months, all she could talk about, that's not entirely true, but she would remind me and over that I yelled at her on the phone. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? That's my office voice. Right. Anyway, we never resolved that. Fast forward a number of years, my wife, Sylvie, in some of our early then my girlfriend, at the time we were just started dating, and I would often answer the phone, same. Hey, what's up? How you doing? Yeah, you good? You good? Everything cool? I was just using the same voice I talked to with a guy friend. Do you think that made her feel special, Andrew?
Not at all.
It did not. It didn't feel good to her at all. So one of the things that I had to start learning to do, which was uncomfortable, but no fucking sacrifice, was, hey, babe, answer the phone. Hey, babe. I'd raise my voice an octave. It's kind of like sending emojis on a text message. I don't feel like a man when I send emojis, but get the fuck over it, man. It makes her feel good. It's no goddamn sacrifice. Just send a fucking emoji if it matters, if it makes a difference, if it pours a little bit of warmth on her side. Raise the tone of your voice. Pay attention what your body is communicating. And tone of voice for many women is so vitally important in terms of communicating safety and in terms of also communicating, am I being chosen? Coming back to the, choose her every day or leave her. Communicating, giving energy into the conversation is a way of saying, yeah, I see you. I'm glad you're here. You're special to me. That simple little, just the difference between, yeah, what's up? Hey, babe, how you doing? To, hi, babe. Hey, what's up? What's up, girl? How you doing? Just right. I don't talk like that to anybody on the planet except for her. But it's not a sacrifice, and it matters to her. And that may not matter to every woman. Some women might think that's ridiculous and not want that. But my wife values it. And it took me, by the way, a long time to figure that out. But that's another simple little thing we can begin to practice with.
Mm-hmm. That's a really underrated point about how our tonality can signal safety or signal fear or, this is a threat. And, as a man, it's our job to comfort and support our women in that, and not to have so much pride if she wants an emoji or wants a little bit of softness in her voice. So I really appreciate the humility and the practicality of that, because most guys aren't thinking about the 70% of communication that's happening non-verbally. So really, really useful. And you talk about doing two things extraordinarily well, is helping with intimacy and helping men do brotherhood. My question is, can you have one without the other? I hope you're enjoying this conversation. If you've been feeling dysregulated or overwhelmed lately, I want to help. I created a nervous system quiz that gives you a personalized practice that shifts you back to presence, calm, and connection. It's free, takes 5 minutes, and are the exact tools I use myself. Just click the link in the show notes to take it. Now back to the show.
I will say that my relationship with my wife is better and healthier and stronger and more resilient because of my brotherhood with epic men. I think I had moments of beautiful intimacy with women before I was really connected consistently with men, but sustaining that, well, I certainly didn't succeed. I certainly never succeeded at sustaining it without being surrounded by what I like to call a trustable brotherhood. Um, I think one of the things about brotherhood, there's a lot of men that are in, the various containers of brotherhood that I either, whether I lead or I participate in, that are single. But, the way that I formulate intimacy, the way that I come at intimacy is it's not just something that you do with another person. Intimacy is really built on the foundation of how intimate are you with yourself, right? How do you know yourself? Can you feel yourself? And I will say it's difficult to create a trustable relationship with another man if he is not intimate with himself. If he doesn't know himself, if he doesn't understand the impact that his language has on me, for example, right? If he isn't aware of the boundaries that he might be tempted to push and violate and or not have, whatever. If he's not intimate with himself in some meaningful way, that erodes trust. It's hard to trust that man. So, it's an interesting question you ask, and I don't know that I'd give it a black or white answer, but I think the two are definitely inextricably linked.
To me, it's been so useful to have, at a minimum, the brotherhood when I'm single or in relationship, because it allows me a space to put down some of what I'm carrying personally and not put that on my woman.
Well, that's certainly the other big part of it, right? Absolutely.
And there's certain things that I've come to realize are best discussed and worked through with other men. And then there's the tenderness and the softness that I can bring to relationship once I have cleared that out with men that I trust. So for me, it's not, again, black or white, but I've only seen the benefits in my intimate relationship by having a group of strong men around me. So, in a perfect world, it would be both.
Yeah. Well, I think you point at probably a significant reason why I wasn't able to sustain healthy relationship before being immersed in men's work, in men's brotherhood experiences. I mean, I could sustain it for a short bursts, but then when the burdens got too heavy, or I didn't have anyone to talk to, I didn't know where to go with the stuff I was going through. And if I put it on her, well, that never went well, because so much of what I'm trying to work through, it's not hers to carry. But in lieu of, if I don't have other trustable men to bring that to help me reality test, to help me, clarity check and all those things, then the burden falls on her either loudly because I'm throwing it on her, or it falls on her silently because I'm carrying it and she can feel that. And it doesn't feel good to her.
I love that. It's not always outwardly spoken about, but she can feel it.
Oh, man.
And I really appreciate that distinction. You've now been doing Elevate, your brotherhood program, for 6 years.
Yeah.
And there's something special about that. And what I wanted to ask you about is you're offering this container for a year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's contrarian to our silver bullet, quick fix, everything done in a microwave society. Yeah. And I found that to be crucial over the long term. So I'm curious what happens in a brotherhood over a year's time that's so valuable you're bringing to the world.
Well, and by the way, I call the program Elevate, but we spend the first few months doing descent work, going into the shadow. Because you can't elevate when you got anchors attached to you, when you're weighted down by baggage and shadow and negative thoughts and childhood wounds, and you're angry at your fucking dad, whether you know it or not, and you're still under your mother's smothering love, whether you know it or not. You can't elevate in your life when you're still weighed down by all this stuff in the shadow. So, but we call it Elevate because, that speaks to the aspiration of our world. But you can't do that in a weekend. You can. But to really get at it, I've done plenty of weekend programs, and I've loved most of them. No shade to that. I've had amazing experiences in fucking 36 hours. with a group of men that I didn't know before and I'd never see again. So no shade to that at all. But there's something about consistency. There's something about, see, one of the things that surprised me, Andrew, when I started getting into men's work that I never really thought about before, I'd never articulated it before, is that men don't trust other men. It's common knowledge that women don't trust men, but we don't talk about how men don't trust each other. When we come into a container that's held well, right, has good facilitation, because not all do, there's a million flavors of men's work, and I'm glad for it. Some of them, I think, hold a container that doesn't create trust. It actually creates more danger. Because it's just the old school paradigms of competition, and we're going to cut you down to build you up. And, I did that in the military. I guess it built me up in certain ways, but it fucked me up in others. Big time. But when you step into a container of men and and consistently see, wow, I get to bring my mess and these guys won't abandon me. Like, they're going to keep loving on me. They're going to keep, I can bring this struggle that I'm going through. Not only are they not going to judge me, but they're going to love me through it. They're going to hold me through it, support me through it, not try to fix me, not try to tell me how I need to do it better. That's one of the things that erodes trust. One of the agreements that in my men's groups we make is we're not here to fix each other. We're not here to save each other. We're here to serve, but not save. So over time, as men step into this kind of arena and get to bring their full selves and see that other men won't reject them, won't abandon them, won't dismiss them, won't exploit them, won't do all the things that men have done forever in their lives. It's like, whoa, shit. There's a resiliency that gets to come online. In my current Elevate container, I've got I work with 10 men every year in this container, and right now we've got 3 men whose marriages are dissolving. And that's pretty, every year I've got at least 1 or 2 guys whose lives are unraveling. Usually they're losing a marriage. When men don't have a brotherhood and they go through an experience like that, I mean, this is what causes men to kill themselves and self-destruct and make all kinds of bad choices. But when they have other men at their back, other men kind of walking them, not doing it for them, but walking beside them, it's like there's a resiliency that comes online. It's like, wow, I can really get through everything because I won't get dropped. The entire weight of the world is not on my shoulders alone. That's priceless, man. Every man needs to have that experience, and so few men have it.
Yeah. And I appreciate you keeping it so real with that, because men are committing suicide. They are blowing up their lives in one way or the other. And it would be a circumstance like in my community, an 18-year marriage is ending. And if that man didn't have other strong, trusted, supported men, I don't know where he'd be. I'm not saying that would all happen, but I've seen it on the other side of the coin. So, and as facilitators and leaders of this work, it's sacred to me to create a container of trust. And I've found it to come in 2 ways. As you said, we get to overcome something challenging as a unit together moving forward, coupled with a level of vulnerability that doesn't allow for that rejection or abandonment on the other side. So I've also noticed it can't happen in a weekend retreat to the depth that you're looking to bring through Elevate. And I just want to, commend you for the long-term period of time that you're committed to serving these men.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. You can have amazing insights in a weekend in 3 hours, in a couple hours. You can have amazing insights. But where do you go with them? I personally have felt dropped after many weekends, and through no fault of the instructor. It's just, that's the format. There was no community support. There was no ongoing, I'm thrown right back into the life I was in before I went to the weekend retreat. And everything in that world is designed to keep me where I was before the retreat. So So having other men that are walking on this journey with you, one of the things I had this epiphany about, like friends. I have a friend, so I do this work with my childhood best friend of 40 years. His name's Tate. And we've been friends now 41 years, man. We carry each other's stories. I think our friends carry our stories. Our closest friends are the ones who carry our stories, so that when I walk into a room, if I'm by myself doing the lone wolf thing, every time I walk into a new room, I have to prove myself all over again. Tell everybody who I am and whatever million. I don't have to, but sort of that's the impetus. Like if I'm going to be known, if I'm going to have any kind of life in this community, I'm going to have to show all these people they're going to have to learn. I got to tell all my stories. Oh, it's exhausting, man, to go through. I got to go through this again, prove blah, 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 blah. But when you have these other men that know your stories, and not just the highlight reels, not just the plaques you've won, but who've been there with you, who've watched you who've seen you in your tears, man, who've seen you at the bottom of the phone booth, crumpled and in agony because your life was falling apart, and they just loved you through it. When we walk into a room and I know that guy is out my side, or I don't need to prove anything. I just be. There's something just profoundly. It's belonging. I get I get the feeling of belonging in a world, I think, where a lot of us men are living in exile from life. That belonging, being seen for who I really am, is man, it's so priceless.
Mm-hmm. And that energy is contagious. To walk into a room and have torchbearers who know you from thick and thin, it really is an energy that ripples into more goodness, more joy, more love, fun, play, all of the things. It's so beautiful. And with Elevate, I've noticed this, and I'd imagine you feel this as well. A lot of men have to hit some sort of breaking point, and most of them are being poked and prodded by their women to come to this type of thing. How do you encourage a guy to not wait to rock bottom to start this kind of work?
Yeah, you ever heard of Francis Weller? You ever read any of his work?
No.
Oh man, Francis Weller. He's one of my just precious mentors. He wrote a book called The Wild Edge of Sorrow, a psychotherapist. He did also long form men's journeys for many years. Brilliant man. He said, I had him on my podcast and I asked him a similar question, and he said, men, for a lot of us men, we must be defeated by life before we come to this work. We must be defeated by something. And it really speaks to that heroic archetype at play for most of us. Like, no, I can do this. I got this. I'm going to do this. I don't need support. I don't need help. I can figure this shit out, or in relationships, it's not my problem. It's her problem. I've already got it figured out. It's time for her to step up as the hero, that whatever, whether it's I'm still the hero, or she's got to be a hero, whatever it is. We have to be defeated. The hero has to be defeated. The hero has to realize this is bigger than me. I surrender. And, I wouldn't say that I do convince a man to do this work before he hits a pain threshold. What's actually more useful is educating women about how to serve a man by not putting up with his adolescent bullshit. That's really far more useful to help strengthen women's resolve to not enable our continued adolescent heroic behavior. It's often for a lot of men, it's when a woman, it's not when I'm like, yeah, dude, you should do this work before shit gets too bad. Fuck that. It's more like when the woman he loves says, you know what? You don't get to be with me anymore if you don't grow up. That's what compels that man to step into this work most of the time. Yeah.
It's why we do this anyway.
Yeah.
Is so that we can love on and appreciate our women in our lives better.
Yeah.
You're right. It is probably a straighter pathway to just work with the women, because we are so logical and can be, at least in my experience, very stubborn. And that I've learned this lesson enough times to just bake it into my life and move forward, knowing that this is my ground that I get to return back to, so that the cliffs aren't so catastrophic.
Yeah.
They're just
Right.
little waves, and I have support built into my life as I continue to elevate in a way.
Yeah.
And I want to bring us back as we kind of begin to land the plane. There was a video series that you did with, Jetty and Adam Jackson, the torchbearers of the men's movement.
Mm.
I really appreciated that.
Mm.
And what I heard in that conversation was men carrying the torch for men's work who have turned back and are serving other men totally as imperfect human beings, but giving their gifts.
Yeah.
And the big question that's on my heart is all of y'all on that call, the leaders of Rising Man, Sacred Sons, yourself, friends of mine, Alan McGrath, these really solid men who hold multi-generational visions for a better future that they might not get to see in their lifetime.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear yours.
This is the kind of work that I wish I wish didn't need to exist. I wish that all men were resourced in the way that I've become resourced with other men around me. Now, I will say this, and I say this too, because I do a lot of online, a lot of Zoom sessions with groups of guys, and I'll say to them, look, guys, this sucks, because we're spread out. I typically work with guys all over the United States and Canada, clients in Europe. Sometimes, a guy in Singapore or Australia will join us at 3 a.m. in the morning. And I'll say, look, this sucks. I hate that we don't get to be in proximity, because there's no substitute for that. And thank fucking God that we have this.
Yes.
Thank God, because if we didn't have this in the modern world we've created, we would be just back to being utterly alone in the ways we've known for years. So, in my vision, every man in his neighborhood has a men's community, has a group of men that are getting together, having the conversations they need to be having on a weekly or biweekly basis, but consistently, and that place is treated as sacred. In Ireland, one of my spiritual home, they have this thing called men's sheds. That's exactly what it is. It's sheds. Like across Ireland, different places, they have these just sheds where men will go, they'll mentor each other, they'll talk, they'll, I don't know. I've never actually been to one. I've only read about them. I haven't had opportunity to go to one, but just the thought of it, the idea of it, men's sheds, like having that as an institution it's what a beautiful thing, and that's something that I want for every man in our country to have, more than just his drinking buddies. Nothing wrong. I'm not against alcohol. I'm not against sports. I love sports, all those things, but we got to have more. We need spaces where we can get angry safely, where we can be sad and be witnessed in those tears, not judged for them, where we can get shit off our chest that we can't get off our chest at home because it would cause chaos and disconnection. We need those spaces with other men, and in my vision, and it ain't going to happen in my lifetime, I'm aware of that. Hell, it might not happen until society implodes and there is no more internet and we all are forced back to the Stone Age and the reconstitution of the village. I don't know. I don't know how it happens, Andrew, but that's my dream, man. That's what I long for myself.
Thank you for sharing that vision. And I share that same call. It's been so valuable to me. And I also hold this incredible gratitude. And also, why do we need this in the world? This should just be baked into our society. It's a little bit silly in that way. But I'm grateful to know that you're holding the torch and out here serving men, and I'm an ally to yours always. I've so enjoyed our conversation. If folks want to stay connected with you, Bryan, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah. Bryan Reeves, my website, Bryan with a Y, that's important. bryanreeves.com is just one-stop shopping for everything, my blogs, my communities. I'm launching, by the time this comes out, I'll have at bryanreeves.com/elevate is actually, I'm now opening my men's community free to men that want to join. I mean, there are higher echelons you can participate in over time, but I just want to create a home where more men can just show up and be in these real conversations. And again, I hate that we have to do it online, but that's what we got. And so I'm creating that at bryanreeves.com/elevate. My wife and I are also starting an online community on School for people that want to do relationship work with their partners. My wife is Sylvie Kukassian. She's a renowned marriage and family therapist and just an incredible teacher and guide as well. And yeah, man, I want to commend you, Andrew. Thank you for inviting me on. You asked great questions. You clearly did your research, and I appreciate that. And I enjoy this kind of sparring with you much more than I did in the MMA room. Not gonna lie, dude. I'm 50. I'm just trying not to hurt myself. That's job number one at the gym. Don't hurt self. Everything. Job 2 is then get in shape, all that stuff. But no, man, no, I love you. Got a big spirit, man, and appreciate you.
The feeling's mutual, brother. I really have enjoyed this conversation. Keep doing the work. I'll do the same. Until next time, go live your life, gentlemen. We'll talk soon.
Thank you for tuning in to the Vital Path podcast. If you found value in today's episode, share the love with someone who comes to mind. It's free, they'll appreciate it, and together we'll keep this community growing. Until next time, God bless you, and go live your life.